I'm not a big fan of binaries. Show me a thing in real life that can be accurately categorized into black and white, and I will show you an exception. Girl, boy, good, bad, left, right, there is always some amount of area in the middle. Even apples and oranges, the titular incomparable things, are literally both fruits. Who came up with this fucking comparison? What do you mean it's like comparing apples to oranges? What would you prefer that I compare, Macintosh and Granny Smith? Binaries are helpful as comparable extremes, but they inevitably produce siloed, rigid thinking that can stifle creativity, which is why it sometimes baffles me that, as creatives, writers are still committing themselves to the pantser versus plotter archetypes. Call it what you want. Pantsers are gardeners, plotters are architects. There goes a conventional writing wisdom, echoed and engendered by some of the greats, that some writers finish a manuscript with a character block, vibes, and a prayer, and some writers have to have 3 plot twists and a civilization simulator prepared before they're allowed to write a single line of dialogue. I have struggled to identify myself in both labels. Neither totally work for me. I want to hear your defenses of pantsing, because personally, I feel like I just write myself into a corner and get stuck, then write myself into a corner and get stuck, and write myself into a corner and... What the fuck, is this a maze? And I'm not so much an architect as I am a baby with an industrial-grade staple gun. I have diagrams, don't get me wrong, but, Of course, it doesn't have to be a rigid binary. You can align yourself more to one side or the other to get a little bit of nuance. Maybe you plot out all the character beats in advance, but you're wringing the political system by the seat of your pants. Or maybe you like to outline one chapter in advance and then write that one before you think any further about the rest of the book. There are options. Humans are already complex creatures. Writers can be unknowable eldritch figures when it comes to teasing out the story that lives somewhere between your heart and your top left rib. I understand the desire to stuff some of that complexity into an easily labeled box. But personally, I just don't fit that well into either of these categories. So, in an act of meaningless defiance, I come to you now not with a middle ground, but with a secret third option that's easily as messy as a pantser and as convoluted as a plotter all at once. Am I a visionary or just a bad writer? You can let me know when we're done. And with that, I present to you the puzzling method. Or beading? Scrapbooking? Thrifting? I don't know. You can let me know what to call it once I've finished explaining. Here's the way it works. Get yourself a journal, or let's be real, a Google Doc, and title it something like Project Idea Dump. Now, every time you have an idea for the story, and I'm talking every time, at work, in the car, responsibly, in the bathroom, in the shower, write it down in this document. Don't try to put it in order, and don't go back and edit things. This is where the nebulous aura of creativity is put to paper in raw form. I do recommend using that header feature or some physical tabs to keep track of things, though. You will thank yourself later. Try not to be too discerning about what goes into the dump document. In fact, do your best not to filter or edit at all. This isn't a piece of showcase writing. It's a slightly more refined stream of consciousness. Honor your silly little ideas. Maybe you decided a side character's favorite ice cream flavor. Maybe you're daydreaming to a song and you have a music video idea. Maybe, purely as a hypothetical, you get really in the weeds of trying to figure out what every character's Pokemon team would be if you created a needlessly in-depth Pokemon AU. What ends up in the document can be a cool, prose-style, carefully written scene, but it doesn't have to be. This part of the process is just the collection phase. You're thrifting, scrapbooking, picking up shiny rocks you find in the street and keeping them for your beading collection. Your brain is handing you loads and loads of puzzle pieces, and you're just putting them away in a box to use later. If you genuinely start doing this, you will be surprised by how much writing you will generate in a short time span. Your brain is an incredible machine and is always working for you. If you give it permission to create and solve problems for you, it will do it. If you're anything like me, you can't control the timing, and you won't remember the solution for longer than 10 minutes, but that's what the dump document is for. It's a treasure trove of inspiration to dig through the next time you're facing writer's block. Once you've cultivated a deep treasure trove, it's time for the next phase. This is, at least for me, the hard part. In the beginning, we sit with the pantsers, following our whims and riding the high of good ideas. But eventually, we must all go back in and edit. I cannot save you from the burden of the plotter, but I do think that even the pantsiest of writers will find this suddenly much less daunting. You aren't creating an outline from nothing. You already have pages upon pages of ideas and character quirks and dialogue and thematic references. All that's left to do is wrangle it into something resembling a book. Prepare for there to be gaps. Prepare to paste 5 pages of detailed prose into a document and follow it with a few sentences marked character revelation here. This is the nature of the chaos. You're not actually meant to exit this stage with a finished novel. What you're doing is taking all the puzzle pieces that you've gathered over time and putting them in place. Try to find the corner pieces, the edge pieces, the pieces that can only fit next to this other piece. What ideas do you keep coming back to? What pillars have you been building on the whole time? What scenes that you once really liked are now clearly not meant to fit into this puzzle? On that note, You have to have some self-discipline with this method. This process produces a lot of excess, and this is good for failing quickly and iterating fast. But for God's sake, don't try to use everything. It is inherently indulgent to entertain every idea that you have, but after you've reveled in that creativity, it is crucial that you are able to identify which puzzle pieces no longer fit into the picture. This is where your darlings were born, but some of them still must die. Once you have all of these notes and all of this material built up and all of this thought put in, it should be trivial to have a thick, coherent outline complete with some really impactful scene drafts ready to be turned into a real novel. That's the ideal outcome, a thick, concrete outline. From there, you can go ahead and fill in what's needed to get an actual first draft. This method has some huge advantages, but it also has some huge disadvantages. Here's our opportunity to go through the pros, the cons, and my tips, aka the good, the bad, the ugly. Let's start with the pros. If you're a pantser, you can give yourself the opportunity to get that dopamine rush from writing an awesome scene without immediately being faced with pushing through the boring stuff, hitting a brick wall, or writing yourself into a corner before you know if a plotline is even functional. You get to try your ideas first and connect them only if they work. If you're a plotter, you get to iterate quickly on different versions of the plot and try out branching ideas without worrying about continuity. You can set out all the pieces of your puzzle first, then masterfully slot them together later for maximum satisfaction and minimum time spent brainstorming. Find the rich moments of prose and build with that, rather than working with vague plot beats. And as a bonus, you'll actually have written something. In general, this method encourages writing without stress and having fun with the process. You're allowed to explore interesting whims, and it prompts you to write all the time, which will naturally help you to improve your skills and beat blank document syndrome. It serves as a great memory bank. It keeps you from losing the little ideas, the details that flesh out your story but have nowhere to go when you're plotting or writing linearly. It also holds your past thoughts and development like a time capsule, both for your development as a person and the development of your story and skills over time. It can be a lot easier to kill your darlings if you know you'll always have a record of what you loved most about them. This can also help you to return to the essence of a character if they've become flanderized, and writing about characters in different scenarios is the essence of getting to know them, which this method helps with. It can also be a great way to chart out the trajectory of the story based on emotional satisfaction. If you know you're writing towards an awesome scene in the last act of the book, and writing from a cool scene in the first act, joining them together becomes a less daunting proposition. It can also help you to identify pillars of the story. If you're rewriting the same scene over and over again, or you're circling the same idea or character beat, that's probably a load-bearing facet of the narrative that you should pay attention to, like how every Spider-Man has the same skeleton even if they change the meat on the bones. There are cons. As I mentioned earlier, this creates a lot of bloat. You have to be able to mold and cut this down into a marbled piece of meat. Don't just dump a massive fat onto the butcher's counter and expect it to sell. If you physically cannot bear to kill any darlings, you maybe shouldn't touch this strategy at all. It encourages writing without committing. Sometimes I will write two versions of a scene with different plot directions that are mutually exclusive. Like, this character dies in this version of the scene, this character does not die. And then I will just not pick one. Because I'm not writing linearly, I don't have to settle on one. This is freeing for creativity. I can explore the ramifications of one versus the other as much as I want, but it can also end up causing problems with Schrodinger's plot point later on if you try to put things together without ever committing to a version of that scene. For the same reason, it can create satisfaction without results. This encourages me to write, yes, but it doesn't drive me to finish the book. No matter how big my notes documents get, the actual text of a novel is not necessarily moving forward. I could just write fanfic of my own characters forever, and it's so gratifying. So why would I ever actually do the hard part of putting the pieces together? Personally, my desire to share my work eventually is strong enough to push me beyond this, but it's an act of discipline, for sure. You can lose things over time. This won't apply if you're a faster writer working on a smaller story, but I'm doing the extremely inadvisable thing of tackling my giant passion project as my first commercial work. I know, I understand the risks, and I play with that fire as a capable and willing adult. Still, I have found that some things that I spent time writing for are now irrelevant to the plot. Some characters have been deleted entirely, the magic system has been redone more than once, and I think I've buried more than a few really good ideas in a massive pile of writing that I'm frankly intimidated to sort through. You can also lose yourself a little bit doing this much non-linear writing. You can flanderize characters over time because you're writing for them more and more, and you can bury aspects of the story that you end up needing later. But all of that can be fixed by going back through the notes and keeping a better organizational system than I did when I thought this was going to take less time. So if you're mindful about this, I think it can go really well. That brings me into just a couple of tips. Please, take my advice. Do better than I did. Organize things. I have like 5 documents with a total of an unspeakable, maybe 2,000 pages across them. And because I was just doing all of this on a whim and not at the direction of a structured YouTube video, I didn't add any tabs. It's not categorized. I tried to go back and add them later, but that's a lot easier said than done when you have the kind of constant stream of consciousness going that I have. I write a lot now, so I have a problem on my hands. But ideally you listen and think and have some sort of baseline organizational system for all this writing. I recommend tagging things as plot, character, theme, dialogue, or miscellaneous. All you really need is to be able to grab all your plot notes and put them in one place, grab all your character notes and make a bio, stuff like that. You don't have to be the most organized person in the world. Also, if you're just writing a dialogue exchange, I recommend using the dash-style bullet point feature to just get the dynamic down quickly. You can add character tags if you want to, and screenwriting comments for tone, but the less that you rely on those things, the better you get at making it clear which character is talking just from their manner of speech. This was something I didn't have the ability to do when I first started writing like this, and now I find that my characters have really distinct voices. There's other things that I could talk about. Please ask questions in the comments if you want to, but for now, that's it. This method works really well for me, honestly, and even though I'm in the drowning in notes stage right now, I also feel really proud of the improvement that I've shown as a writer in all this time. I'm so astounded by the volume of writing that I have, and, I feel confident that I have everything I need in there, if only I can get it organized. If and when I make that happen, I'll get back to you guys with some tips, but in the meantime, if you're struggling with plotting, pantsing, or gardening, give this a try. Take the pieces that work for you and ditch the ones that don't. At worst, it'll be a really fun time. Let me know how it goes for you or if you've already been doing something like this, and I'll catch you later. Peace!